So early in my chess career, someone told me that there was a trap you could play as black against d4. And they told me it went like this. You play e5, sacrificing your pawn, and then you bring out your knight to attack it, and then usually they'll defend it with their knight. Then you bring out your queen to attack it again. They'll defend it with their bishop. And then you play the move queen to b4, check, with this little triple fork, and black's completely winning. And for a long time, I actually believed that that was true. And I played this several times, and I did win quite a few games with it. If we check the database, we'll see that 95,000 people have played this queen to b4 check move. But the funny thing is, if white knows what to do, this is actually completely losing for black. So in this video, I'm going to show you how this trap doesn't actually work. Hey, welcome to episode 7 of High Probability Opening Traps. In this video, I'm going to show you a trap in the Englund Gambit that a lot of people mistakenly think is good for black, and I'm going to show you why that's not the case. So after d4, e5, we have what is called the Englund Gambit. Black just gives away this e5 pawn for free with the idea that he can attack it with knight c6, follow up with the queen e7, and create some kind of tricks with queen b4 check, and sometimes if white's unprepared, it can actually work out. But as we'll see in a second, it's really not very good. So after white captures knight c6, putting pressure on the pawn, knight to f3 makes sense, just defending it and developing a piece in the process. After queen to e7, black now has two attackers on the e5 pawn. So bishop f4 is a logical way to defend it again and also develop a piece. And queen to b4 check is the move that's been played over 95,000 times that people mistakenly believe is good for black. And at first glance, it does look pretty good. You have a triple fork that white has to deal with. So first of all, a move like c3 or knight c3 doesn't work because the bishop on f4 would simply be captured and white loses a piece. So there's really only two moves that white can consider: queen to d2 to block the check and defend the bishop, or retreating the bishop. So let's look at queen to d2 first. Now black can simply capture on b2, threatening the rook in the corner. So white only has one way to save the rook: queen to c3. Now the queen is defending the rook. If black were to try to capture, white could simply take it. But black has bishop to b4, pinning the queen and basically winning the game, because now white's queen is gone. So let's go back, and instead of queen d2, what about bishop to d2? Now black can do the same thing, capture on b2, threatening the rook. And after bishop c3, trying to defend the rook that way, black can do the same little trick, bishop to b4, pinning this bishop so it can't move to take the queen. And after something like bishop takes b4, knight takes b4, now black has a threat of a fork here, as well as a threat of simply taking the rook, and white can't defend everything. Also, if white tries queen to d2 to defend this way, black can simply capture it, and after white recaptures, queen to c1 is checkmate. Now, if that's all that you looked at, you would conclude that this is good for black. You're simply winning a rook or a queen or getting checkmate, depending on what white does. Now I'm going to show you why that's not the case. So if we go back to this position after white blocked with the bishop, and we capture on b2. I told you that if white played bishop c3, we could simply play bishop b4 and we're winning the game. So the move that white has to play is knight to c3. So do whatever you have to do to remember that. If you need to rewatch this video, if you need to take a Sharpie and write it on the bottom of your socks, whatever you need to do, just remember knight c3 is the move, not bishop c3. Because if you play bishop c3, you're going to lose. If you play knight c3, you're completely winning. So why is this winning for white? Well, first of all, the rook is defended by the queen, so black can no longer take the rook. And by playing this move, white actually has a very clever threat that's not immediately apparent. So for example, let's suppose black just decides to play a random developing move because he doesn't see the threat, maybe knight g to e7. But the threat that white has is to play rook to b1, attacking the queen. Black has to move, the only safe square is a3. And now white can play knight to b5, forking the queen and this c7 pawn. Black would like to play queen a5 to defend this pawn, but it's not an option because of the bishop. So after something like queen takes a2, white simply captures on c7 with a really nasty fork. Black has to move, the rook is gone, and black is totally lost. So now you can see that white has a very immediate threat of playing rook b1 followed by knight b5 and forking the queen and the pawn. That's what black has to deal with. The problem is black has no good way to do that. One move that players have tried is bishop to b4, attacking the knight on c3, but after rook to b1, black has to save his queen, queen to a3, and now white has knight to d5. The reason knight d5 is better than knight b5 is because now black does have the option of playing queen a5, which will defend the c7 pawn. So knight to d5 turns out to be better. But after this move, captures, queen takes, white is completely dominating the position. Mainly because this fork on c7 can't be defended in a good way by black. Queen a5 is not an option. White will simply trade queens and then take on c7. So really the best move for black is probably king d8. And white has all kinds of attacking chances. Now that black moved his king, he can't castle to get out of the center. So white's going to simply play e4, develop this bishop, castle, bring the rooks in, and it's a very, very bad position for black. So going back, one other move that black has tried is knight to b4, threatening the c2 pawn that way. But after knight to d4, defending it, followed up by rook b1, again, white is completely in control of the game and black really has no good options. Okay, so because of what we just saw, I cannot recommend that you play this as black, but I just want you to be aware, if someone plays it against you, you know exactly what to do. You capture it. After knight c6, you play knight f3. After queen e7, go ahead and play bishop f4. Let them play queen b4 check, which if they're playing this opening, there's a very good chance they're going to do this. And then just play bishop d2. After they take it, remember knight c3 is the move you have to play. Please don't play bishop c3 and lose the game. Play knight c3 and you're in good shape. Hey, I hope you learned something in this video. Be on the lookout for episode 8, which is coming out soon. But as always, thanks so much for watching and take care.